Iran has shut the Strait of Hormuz and has vowed to keep it closed. President Trump is calling the opening of the strait a, quote,
very small endeavour.
So, is it a small endeavour? Let's break this down. Let's start with the current situation in the second busiest waterway in the world for maritime merchant shipping. Why is opening the strait a priority for Trump? Well, economically, normally there are 40 to 6 tankers a day that pass through the strait into and out of the Persian Gulf, feeding 20% of the world's daily oil supply and 1/5 of the world's liquefied natural gas supply, produced by Qatar. You can see here just how the maritime traffic passing through the strait has dried up, as the IRGC has threatened to set the US and its allies' ships ablaze, and in turn, oil prices have soared. However, millions of barrels of oil are still being shipped from Karg Island using Iranian, Indian and Chinese tankers, even after the US hit the Iranian forces based on the island with airstrikes from B-2 bombers. It is also reported through open source intelligence channels that these tankers are going dark. So what does that mean? Basically turning off their transponders that identify them on shipping radar, or spoofing. Spoofing is basically sending a signal out disguising the tanker's original identity. But militarily, keeping the strait open is also critical. US Navy warships have air defense capabilities using missiles such as the SM-2, SM-3 and SM-6. Basically, different types of missiles to counter an array of threats from Iran. This is important to bolster crucial air defense capability to Gulf states' oil infrastructure, what I would regard as what's called a critical vulnerability, given the rate, certainly, at which interceptors are being used. For example, reports indicate that the UAE burned through 800 interceptors in the first 3 days of conflict. In addition, it's not just the oil infrastructure of Gulf states that could be targeted. The IRGC have, quote, warned the American regime to evacuate all American industries in the region. That includes Boeing and Microsoft in Dubai, and Oracle and Exxon in Amman, Jordan, to name but a few. But it isn't just about air defense. Mine hunting vessels are also critical to keeping maritime traffic safe. And currently, the Gulf is devoid of any effective mine hunting capability. That's a real problem when the US is looking to seize key Iranian oil export infrastructure like Karg Island. So what would it take for the US to reopen the strait? Well, take a listen to this.
Their missiles are down to a low number. You see, they're shooting very few of them. You know why? Because they don't have very many of them. And because we've decimated their manufacturing capability.
Well, Iranian ballistic missiles, cruise missiles, and anti-shipping missiles and aircraft have without doubt taken a big hit. We call this in military parlance the conventional threat. But what about Iran's asymmetric threat? Here we're talking about go fast, so attack boats and jet skis. And then there is the ubiquitous Shahed 136 one-way attack drone. These are hard to detect and in swarms are hard to target and destroy, especially due to their close proximity to the strait. So how would the US counter this unpredictable Iranian asymmetric threat? President Trump has called on countries including China, France, Japan and South Korea and the UK to send warships to the region to secure the shipping lanes. But before you can do that, you need to tackle the Iranian mines. And we're talking about thousands of Iranian mines, not sophisticated by any stretch of the imagination and very old. Iran has many Soviet-era, Western and Iranian-made mines. Some estimates say up to 2,000. The US claims to have destroyed 16 of Iran's naval mine-laying capability, but a mine can be laid from any vessel, a fishing vessel for example. So clearly Trump needs a mine-hunting capability. Well, in 2025, the US decommissioned 4 Navy mine countermeasures ships, half of the US global mine-hunting fleet. The replacement is called the Littoral Combat Ship, or LCS, that have anti-mine capabilities. 3 were deployed into the Middle East in the past year. But again, open source intelligence has just spotted 2 of these LCSs in a port in Malaysia. That's thousands of miles away. On top of that, the UK sent its only semi-permanent naval asset in the Persian Gulf, HMS Middleton, a mine countermeasures warship, back to the UK in January this year. Recent reports indicate HMS Middleton was carried on the back of a heavy lift vessel to the UK, as she was no longer certified to sail. The other important thing here is mines are also carried by tidal flows and currents, making the enduring clearance of any particular piece of water incredibly problematic. So currently, the US ability to clear the Hormuz Strait of mines is questionable, and even if you could, you then need escorts to guide merchant shipping through the strait, which is only 21 nautical miles wide at its narrowest point. This is what we think Trump is calling on assistance for. But with a significant mine threat, this would place any warships from NATO countries in harm's way. Let's take a look at 2 key complexities with Trump's ask. The president warned it would be, quote, very bad for the future of NATO allies if allies cannot help to secure the strait. But will they support him? Well, NATO's premise is Article 5, collective self-defense. So an attack on one is an attack on all. Could Trump argue, though, that the US being attacked in the Persian Gulf qualifies NATO to get involved? I've operated on 3 NATO operations, and that's not the way NATO's policy works. For starters, Trump initiated the war along with Israel, citing an imminent threat that was proven to be false. An existential threat? Possibly. The only time in NATO's history Article 5 was triggered was after 9/11. And the current response? Well, from NATO countries, that suggests an appetite for a soft power solution, so a negotiated agreement, rather than a hard power solution like assets, warships, to the region. Trump has also called on China to help police the Strait. Maybe not an unfair ask given China's dependence on oil from Iran. However, we already know that Chinese tankers are transiting through the Strait. Data from tanker trackers suggests that 1 million barrels of Iranian crude is still being exported, even after the US strikes, which compares to an average daily pre-conflict number of around 1.7 million barrels. So, does China benefit from current oil exports enough not to get involved? Add on top of that, China's deployment of a 30,000-ton next-generation surveillance ship, the Liuang-1, that allows Beijing effectively to watch the entire region with advanced sensor architecture. I would question, to what end is Beijing furnishing Iran with critical data on the current US disposition of forces and their activity in the region? So given the nature of the Iranian asymmetric threat and the current lack of disposition of US naval capability to deal with that threat, just how much of a small endeavour is this?